So, okay, good. So before I start, do we need to go over any ground rules or anything like that?
I do have a list of rules of decorum for public participation. If you'd like to meet, I can go over those pretty quickly.
Yeah, go ahead, Devin.
Awesome. Are you all seeing my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, my name is Devin Saunders. Thank you all for being here. I'm the board specialist for the Design Advisory Board, and today there's one item up for discussion. There is a public participation option for this item, so I'll be going over a little bit of rules of decorum that the city has put on. Pretty cut and dry, but in general, the city has engaged with community members to co-create a vision for productive, meaningful, and inclusive civic conversation. This vision supports physical and emotional safety for community members, staff, board and commission members, as well as democracy for people of all ages, identities, lived experiences, and personal perspectives. There is quite a detailed description about this vision and engagement process, and you can click and you can learn more by following the link at the bottom of that one if interested.
That's it? Okay.
Just two more slides here.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No problem. The following are examples of rules of decorum found in the Boulder Revised Municipal Code and other guidelines that support this vision. These will be upheld during this meeting. All remarks and testimony shall be limited to matters related to city business. No participant shall make threats or use other forms of intimidation against any person. Obscenity, racial epithets, and other speech and behavior that disrupts or otherwise impedes the ability to conduct this meeting are prohibited. Participants are required to identify themselves using the name they are commonly known by, and individuals must display their whole name before being allowed to speak online. Currently, only audio testimony is permitted online. There, like I had mentioned, there is the public participation option. And so when it comes to that time, you will see a little raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen. At that time, you'll be able to raise your hand, and that will signify to me and to the rest of the board that you are interested in talking. You can just click on that hand there. Otherwise, there are a few short options there. You can click Alt-Y if you're on a PC, Option Y on a Mac, or *9 on your phone. And all of those will go ahead and raise your hand and let me know that you're interested in public participation. And with that, I will defer back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. At this point, it doesn't look like we have anybody signed up for public participation. So when we get to that point in the agenda, we'll check in again. So I would like to call to order the March 8th, 2023 meeting of the Boulder Design Advisory Board. And we'll just do a little roll call for us, and then Mark and the other city people who are here. So Todd Bryan, Dab.
Matthew Scheck-Snyder, Dab.
Rory Bilosarkovich, Dab.
Brendan Ash, Dab.
Mark McIntyre, Planning Board.
Okay, staff.
Moni Pahoa, I'm the staff liaison to DAB.
I'm Shannon Muller. I'm a planner in development review and the case manager for the project.
Devin Saunders, board specialist for the board.
Okay. Christopher.
Yeah, I'll jump in too. Christopher Johnson, comprehensive planning manager.
Okay. And we have two people from Sofer Sparn Architects. Can you guys identify yourselves for us?
I'm Jacob Schneck.
And I'm Adrian Sofer.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for our December 14th meeting. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Any discussion about the content of the minutes? There was some edits that were made up until, I believe, yesterday. So hopefully those are sufficient for everybody. So could I have a second for that then?
I think it was pretty much just grammar and spelling, right, Devin? There's just a couple of.
Okay.
Should be good.
Yeah, I second.
Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So third item on the agenda is the public participation for issues unrelated to the project review. It doesn't look like we have any people who have checked in for public participation. Is that correct, Evan? Okay.
That is correct. There are no further attendees in the meeting.
Okay, so we'll see if anybody wants to talk about the particular project, but so now we're ready to actually move into this project. So we have one project up for review today. It is 1230 Pine Street. It's a site review amendment for renovations to Hotel Boulderado Annex 1 and 2. And I can say more specifically about what that is, but I think why don't we have Shannon, who I believe is prepared to give us kind of an introduction, to go ahead with that.
Great. Good afternoon, board members. I'm Shannon Moeller, case manager for this project. I'm part of the development review planning staff at the city. So I'll just give a very brief intro to the project. It consists of renovations to the Boulderado Annex property at 1230 Pine. These renovations are primarily interior work with some site and exterior updates to the property. And these renovations are specific to the annex buildings that are located along Pine. These buildings were constructed following PUD approvals in the 1980s. So we wanted to note that it doesn't include any changes to the historic Boulderado Hotel building located at Spruce and 13th. The proposal is required to go to DAB because it's located in the non-historic and interface area of the downtown design guidelines. And staff had identified just one item in the memo, which was to evaluate the changes to the entry feature on the north side of the building for wayfinding and design of the new entry. So that was the item staff asked for some feedback on. So with that, I'm happy to turn it over to the applicant team with Sopher Sparn to give you a little more detail on the project.
Okay,
So are we able to share our screen? Yeah.
Yes, great. Thank you, Shannon. Can you guys all hear me? Okay.
yes.
Yep.
All right. Can you guys see our screen?
Yep.
Great. So yeah, so the project that we're looking at is the Hotel Boulderado Annex. Our renovations, as Shannon mentioned, are primarily interior. For anyone unfamiliar, we're basically at the southeast corner of Pine and Broadway. We're in that historic interface district downtown. Some site context photos. Across the street, we have several churches. We've got the Pine Street Church north of the project site, Pine and 13th, the Trinity Lutheran Church, north of the project as well, Pine and Broadway, and then to the west of the project, the First Congregational Church. And this is a view of the existing annex building and entry along Pine, view along Broadway, and then further along Pine. And then we also have a view of the alley. We're doing some minimal work along the alley. And then just current views along Broadway and again along Pine.
You're just so you know, the presentation is not full screen, so it might get a little bit bigger and more legible if you can switch to a full screen mode. I don't know if you can.
Close those windows on the right.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
Great. So yeah, as I mentioned, the work is primarily interior. We are taking the existing conference center located on the first floor Boulderado has found and feels that this is not providing the use that it once did for them. And they wish to convert this into hotel rooms. Specifically, we're looking to provide ADA accessible hotel rooms in this area that would be directly accessible off of Pine to help serve that population, as you know, the existing rooms in the historic building and even in this annex were built to different standards when they were built. So they'd like to be able to accommodate that group of patrons better through this renovation. Existing site plan here, currently there are entries off of Broadway and then entries off of this kind of elevated and then sunken again courtyard. No entries directly off of Pine at this time. Now, will I be able to go to the next slide?
Can I stop you guys for 1 second?
Sure.
There's a little bit of distortion in your microphone. Can you guys also hear that, or is that just me?
I hear it.
I hear it too.
We have another microphone system we can use, maybe. Devices.
Battery high. PC connected.
How's this? Can you hear us any better, or how do you have it?
It's
worse.
the same,
It's the same,
maybe
Oh.
worse.
maybe worse. We have to change devices. Can we do that?
Let me
Switch. Microphone.
what is it?
It's one of these, because it's
A speaker.
That's
That's in the system. I don't know.
is that any better?
That's better.
Okay.
Okay, let's stick with that. Okay. So then our new proposal, looking at just the site plan, we're proposing to eliminate the entry off of Broadway that serves the conference center. This will now be hotel rooms beyond that, and relocate a singular entry directly off of Pine Street. That will provide, you know, a much quicker access than the current entry to the north, and will come in at a lower elevation to allow for less ramping on the interior to get to these rooms. I will note that this is going to be a secondary entry. Guests will still check in, and the primary entry will be in the historic building. This will be for guests who, once they are checked in and coming and going from their rooms. Just the solar analysis of the project, we're really not adding any additional height or going under all of the existing roofs. We are proposing to add a new entry canopy along Pine. That would be lower than the 25-foot solar fence that exists in this area. Yeah, we've got some modifications to the garage, just restriping there. Here, the first floor plan, you know, looking at the existing conference center, existing entries, that will be demoing the interior. We'll be doing some minor demo work on the exterior along Pine and along these rooms as well. And then the entry configuration that we're redoing, we'll be creating a new entry canopy here, a new entry into a lobby that is at elevation 99. This will need to ramp down to the rooms, which are at 97.9. This existing Annex 1 is at level 100, so it is up. So we have some ramping that gets you back up there. And we're really proposing right now, this courtyard serves as a overflow space for the conference center. Now that that conference center is gone, we really want to capture as much of this patio space for private guest patios for the rooms, and then really just maintain the egress from this existing stair through the patio out. It's primarily our client would like this to function more as kind of a visual area with plantings. And patio space, not really a space for gathering due to the nature and proximity to the hotel and guest rooms.
So just briefly, the main purpose of this change is to create as close to as an accessible entry off of Pine Street as we can. It is accessible. We are making an accessible entry. We've lowered the entry point. Right now, we have to go upstairs to get up to the entry into the current lobby. We're lowering the new lobby, but we can't get it all the way down to the elevation of the rooms. We're getting as close as we can. So we still have an internal ramp inside the lobby space, the new lobby we're making, but it's much easier to get access to. There's a parking space right outside that is a loading zone that provides accessible access to this entry. And then the rooms inside, not all of them are accessible, but a fair number of them are. And then we still have a fair amount of change inside the building to get to the other portion of the existing structure. There's a lot of grade change internally in this building. If you've ever been to the conference center, you know that.
And so this is where the vast majority of work is happening.
The focus of the comment from staff that's in front of DAB is the entry canopies itself, the way it looks on the street. There's very little external change involved with this work. Jake, why don't you just go through that, the external?
Yeah. So looking at the elevations here, we've got the existing demo elevations below. We're proposing to demo the steps into the current courtyard, as that will no longer be publicly accessible. Demo the fabric canopy above that, and then we'll be doing some demo at the new entry to create a recessed entry there, and we'll also be doing some minor demo along Pine Street to the east to create additional space under existing porch roofs. So this is along Pine Street. Along Broadway, we'll be taking away that large entry canopy that exists now, removing the entry doors there, and infilling that with a room window. I'll also be making these patios on the second level accessible now, which currently these are not accessible by those rooms. And then along the alley, we'll be demoing existing trash enclosure and some brick walls that enclose their current back of house kitchen spaces, creating some enclosed patio spaces that are really internally focused. They all have some internal landscaping, but just to provide an amenity to those rooms, you know, kind of providing a space to be outside in the light of the air while blocking the views to that alley, which are very desirable.
So the main focus that DAB wanted us, that staff wanted us to discuss with you is this entry and the configuration of the new entry and the canopy associated with it relative to the old entry to the patio. The patio still will exist. It's just not going to be a publicly accessible entry. We're going to improve it and create more of a garden zone that you can still see through to, but will not be, it's not associated with the conference center anymore. So it will not be an entrance into a common area any longer.
This is the elevation that we want to focus on.
So that was what was proposed in the packet, and staff's comment. Do we want to just read it? Or Kalani, do you have it handy? We can pull it up if you don't.
I can pull it up very quickly.
Oh, we have it right here. Jake's got it.
I've got the DAB version of it. So basically, as you know, staff felt retaining the arch while redirecting the foot traffic to tracks from a newer entry location and circulation path. Staff recommends eliminating the existing arch to better direct pedestrian traffic and to avoid cohesive wayfinding and to provide cohesive wayfinding.
So I think that what staff is referring to as the arch is the portico gabled entry. which we are taking out the steps, we are closing it down somewhat, but I believe staff feels that it's detracting from the new entry, which we can now go back and share with you in our 3D view.
So you can see, we've wanted to maintain this, leave this open into that corridor to give a visual view into the courtyard. We feel, by removing the steps, providing fencing and a little bit more of a brick wall in here, we will detract people from, thinking that is the entry, and bring people to the main entry into the annex.
So that's the topic of conversation that staff asked that you address, and we're happy to answer any questions.
We do have additional documentation. We've got the landscape plans. We have some circulation diagrams that we're asking. We do have a 3D model that we can spin around.
I think we can get into that in the discussion. I'm sure those questions will come up, but I think this is a good start to kind of get us started on questions that we may have for you, and then more of a discussion among the DAB members. Before we do that, I'd like to see if Devin, if we have any public participation requests.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. There are currently no other attendees, so that would be no other participation at this time.
Okay, well, so to start this off, what I'd like to do is to see if DAB members have any, or Mark has any questions for the applicants about what we've looked at so far. Before we get into the discussion, do you have any clarifying questions?
I have one quick one. What is the use behind the windows just above the proposed canopy location? Is that a room?
Yes, that's an existing hotel room.
We're blocking it out. Like, is it muted?
No, yeah, we're not. That's one of the restrictions or constraints that we're working around. It's not interfering with that existing window.
And my second quick question is, I assume the face of the building where the portico is and across is the maximum building to setback you're allowed there?
Yes, this is right along the existing property line, so we're maintaining that it's basically a 0 lot line setback.
Okay, thank you.
Any other DAB questions? Just for clarification. I have one. I don't know if you can see my cursor on this. You probably can't, but let me just see if I can pose the question. So for the new entrance, if you walk in the new entrance where this woman is walking on this image, when you get under that canopy and you turn left, is there a stairway there?
Yes.
That leads up to that patio?
It's the egress from the patio.
Yes, there is a stair there, and I can go to the.
I'm assuming that'll be key card access only.
Yes, the intent would be that would be key card access only. So there are stairs here that you could come up to this gate, and if you have a key card, hotel key card, you could enter this area.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The function will just be for egress from this stair for life safety.
Okay, so there's no ramp, it would be stairs.
Correct.
Okay. Good. Thanks. Any other questions before we get into discussion?
Yeah, Todd, on to add on to your question, when you say that's gated and a key card, is that floor to ceiling height fencing, like metal fencing that you would access with a key card? Or is it something someone could jump over?
We've proposed it as about a 5 or 6 foot high fence. So it would not be full height. At least that's not what's proposed. So in theory, someone could jump over it, yes.
I think to be honest, we have to detail that fence, the gate, et cetera, but we aren't expecting it would be all the way up to the underside of masonry, but it would be more likely in the 7-foot range by the time we're done. We'd be happy to submit a minor mod once we have details on all of
All right, thank you.
Okay,
And we're not trying to cut off the view. We are trying to keep it relatively protected. And to be able to see through into whatever development of landscape that we can do. Pots, we know we'd certainly be doing that. The hotel has it in their interest to make this visually attractive.
no other questions? So let's,
Wait, I do have one question.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to understand the elevation of the courtyard versus the elevation of the new guest room patios. So the guest room patios are at 97.9, right? And the courtyard
Yeah,
is
so
at
let me
100.
walk you through it. It's a little bit complicated, I think. So these guest room patios are down at 97.9. The courtyard elevation would be up 2'3" above that at 100. And basically everything on this line is on 100. So these would be at 100. And these are, existing kind of a sunken little courtyard at 97.
Those are all existing approximate elevations today. If you go out there today, all of those elevations are the same, relatively speaking.
right. Okay. So do you want to start with the that perspective that we just had of the front that sort of shows the juxtaposition of those two?
I
Yeah.
think you guys had in the packet a really good diagram where you're showing existing demo, proposed. Yeah, here you go. I think this is very useful to just get a quick snapshot of what they're doing here, guys. And I think if you zoom into the right image, which is kind of the final product here. In our agenda meeting, we kind of clarified some, staff's additional commentary on their comment. And basically, I think that there's kind of 3 roof forms now greeting the pedestrian on the street, right? All the way off to the left, we have this hip roof that's existing, but is now being infilled with a room underneath it. In the center, we have what used to be the entry and kind of the temple front with the portico gable. And then we now have this additional kind of bowstring truss shape with the fabric awning and kind of the colonnade that is the kind of signature entry feature around this building's entire perimeter. Anywhere that you're accessing Hotel Eldorado, you're entering under a black bowstring canopy with their logo emblem. So the question, I guess, that I have for our group, the DAB group, is I'm personally not concerned that somebody's going to mistake the temple front as the entry because there's a bike rack and a wall in front of it. So I think it's pretty clear that you're not going to enter there. I'm more interested in hearing feedback in my kind of preparation for this meeting. I was kind of like, okay, I see the point. It's starting to, you could argue it's getting a little kind of, forgive me, strip molly with the sense that there's different kind of roof forms meeting you very quickly. And is that composition, is it necessary? And is this relic of the portico? I mean, you could leave it as is. I don't think it's a wayfinding issue. You could very easily remove it and peel back that entire roof that's just covering outdoor space back to the shed that is creating kind of the link that's recessed. Or you could potentially hip over this portico so that it matches the left facade where that new bedroom is, so that we're kind of eliminating the amount of chess pieces kind of at the front line here. That's kind of my understanding of the issue, and I would love to hear, you know, my fellow board members' opinions.
I want to just jump in and say that we have this one that we have been studying, which brings in the hip roof language to the entry.
Can we get down to the street level? Because it actually shows better there.
Oh, that's interesting.
And one of the interesting pieces that we've been working with the hotel on, possibly they have the historic Hotel Boulderado sign that currently is sitting in the basement.
It's the original sign from the main hotel that they still have, and it's sandstone, and we could find a way to keep it, to raise it up and put it over the century. So since you brought it up, Rory, we thought we'd show it to you.
No, fair enough. And I guess it's interesting. I was actually, in my mind, it was like, do you hip the portico? Because it's kind of becoming one of the secondary forms, like the one over.
It's proud. It's significantly proud, though. So
It is aligned with the other hipped roof, if I'm reading
Right.
this 3D view right.
yeah,
So Rory, if I can jump in here, it sounds like you're saying that you don't think that that existing portico is going to confuse people about where the entry is, but it may be too much of a kind of shopping mall kind of structure that's not really needed and could be either removed, or it could be scaled back so that it matches the roof line on the left.
Those were just some seeds for conversation,
Yeah.
I think, but you nailed it. I don't think it's a wayfinding or circulation issue. I
Okay.
think it's really just a facade composition issue.
Okay, so if we could hear from Matthew and Brendan maybe about the wayfinding issue, is that an issue for you guys?
I'll go. Yeah, so I agree. I think Roy summed it up pretty well as to what the options are. I think when you're walking down that sidewalk currently, the ramp and the stairs are more of a detraction to me in terms of being a friendly entry. And I generally like this change. I think that this actually is an improvement on the current entry to the building. And I don't mind the canopy. I think that the canopy is it's more in keeping with what's around the rest of the block. And it is like Rory said, it's more of a signature element. I think that this elevation, I really like the keeping the original signage, especially the hot. Just leave it hot Eldorado. Just kidding. But I like bringing in the history of it, but I don't necessarily think that I like the hip roof under the guest room above. And I think having that canopy, while the arc of the canopy isn't huge, it's totally within keeping of what's existing. And I mean, it looks like you've just kind of moved the existing canopy over. I like having the, what are we calling that? The triangle.
The temple front.
Temple front, thank you. I think that when you've taken out the stairs, you've put bike parking, changed up the landscaping, the wall and the low fence, I think there's not much confusion to me. And I think programmatically, when you're looking down that corridor, it's very different. And it's, again, it's kind of calling out more of a public space within that mass of a building versus the other hipped roof to the east, which is, private hotel space. So I think calling it out as something different, I actually think is very appropriate. And I generally like having that entry at grade. I think was a huge improvement.
So this canopy is the same canopy that's actually in the main entrance to the old building.
Every entrance to this building has this canopy, every.
Más o menos. I mean, it's not necessarily the exact same size, but
Right,
same
right.
feeling.
Yeah,
But it's what's
You're taking
also
the-
tacked on to the art.
But there's no other entrance than this one. I mean, it's what the
Right.
entrance is today. But tomorrow that Broadway entrance will be gone.
yeah.
Be this location. The others are canopies at the ground floor windows.
Yeah, but what is it, the east facade, like the historic entrance, has a massive version of that canopy. And then what is it, the south facade?
Oh,
where
I'm
you
sorry. Yes,
enter-
you're right. That one. Mhm.
Yeah, so there's this kind of iconic entry that it matches, which is different now. It's got the new branding on it now. If you go to Google Earth, it's got the black. And then the entrance just west on the south facade of the corner bar that kind of gives you that little sneak into the piano lounge, that also has the same canopy. So I think in a lot of ways, it's very consistent what they're doing. Yeah, there you go. So there's that. And then if you cruise down Pine
Yeah.
Street, or is that Spruce? Yeah, so we get another one that reaches out and grabs you. And they're going as far as putting the stone pillar or the masonry pillars underneath it, versus this one just kind of has some chintzy steel pipe columns. So it feels very on brand to me. And
Yeah, and I think it gives it a little hierarchy too. This isn't
Right.
the primary entrance to the project. That, somebody's not going to be confused. Where's the lobby? Where do I check in? I think there is hierarchy, and it's as welcoming as I think it needs to be.
Matthew, do you have any input on the canopy?
I mean, at the risk of not contributing enough, I'm not offended by the proposal. I mean, I think it would go too far to try to clean up the proposal by taking away the portico that's there. I mean, there's a lot happening with roofs and setbacks and layers here. I don't think this is the one feature that's left over that's taking away from the project. On the contrary, I think the fact that it's converted, it's maintained that visual corridor through the outdoor space. It's appropriate. The wayfinding issue, which I think was your original question, Todd, I'm not concerned about wayfinding. It's more, to me, just a composition question now of, is the canopy achieving its intent of marking the main entrance? Yeah, I would say I wouldn't go so far as to look at hip options or, modifying that gable just to make it go away. That feels a little too intense of an intervention just to, make this primary entrance look like the only entrance off that street.
Just to play, oh, sorry, Todd, just to play devil's advocate for a second, because I tend to agree. I mean, I feel like this one's pretty cut and dry. But on the one hand, this additional layer of facade that reaches out to the sidewalk is creating some privacy and kind of, like you said, layering to the what are now private rooms and private balconies. So if you have kind of street action and night, you're hanging out on your patio, kind of this layering that inherently creates privacy, which I can see would be desirable. On the other hand, there's bedroom windows back there that would they benefit from better access to daylight and less feeling like your room's in a hole if you tore this whole thing off and open even so far as to remove that artificial roof connection between the two rooms, that remove all cover from the patio essentially so that you gain more access to daylight. That's just kind of a for sake of discussion. I'm assuming there's a budget associated with this project, and the less kind of demo for the sake of demo and rebuild for the sake of rebuild it doesn't benefit the program is probably a win for the client.
So you're saying you're comfortable with keeping it, but there are some other things to think about. One being daylight, and that's also, it's a north facing part of the building. So
Yeah, look at those rooms. They're buried under
There's really
this.
only one area that we're talking about. If we take off that canopy front, Jake, you want to put the cursor where that is? That's the only area that we're talking about removing.
right,
And there's still going to be a roof between those two projecting sitting areas that would actually link them right
Yep.
across that zone. So the amount of additional daylight you're going to get, you'll get some, not huge quantities of improvement to those two rooms on the north side. Don't forget they're both north facing already.
I'm not necessarily advocating it. That was
Yeah.
just the only other parameter I could imagine
Mhm.
having a conversation on this pretty cut and dry proposal.
And comparably, the owner brought up, it also gives you a sense of more protection from the street to keep it.
I get that, yeah, and there's night activity in this district that, you would, having that extra layer would feel good potentially.
okay, so Brendan, do you concur with kind of Matthew and Rory that the keeping it is, are you comfortable with that, or do you have some other thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, I like the design as this design. I think the only thing that I would suggest exploring would be the weight of the pilasters that are holding up that very thin canopy that are
Yeah.
sitting in the front. Maybe that is something that can be explored. I don't mind the width of the pilasters that are flanking the entry, because it feels right, like they're literally holding up. Well, what structurally, I don't know what they're doing, but they are visually holding up the units above and that tower of guest rooms that are sitting above the arch canopy.
Well, there's two layers there. The arch canopy is being held up by huge pilasters that are doing nothing.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
I like the first layer
Right.
closer to the building of pilasters. I think that works, and it's also ties in the handrail on the small amount of stairs. I just wonder if the pilaster on the street, on the sidewalk they just could be explored as
Yeah,
being
well-
thinner.
Actually, in the packet you have, they are smaller.
Yeah. So I mean, going back to that, and then like we were pointing out on this Bruce Street, they're just metal posts. So
Mhm.
maybe not quite that thin, but they do feel a little disproportionate to the weight that they're holding of this very small light canopy above.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And in fact, this is somewhat of a holdover from looking at if we did do the roof.
The hip roof, yeah.
Yeah, these are the same pilasters that we're holding up the hip roof. So it would be fair to reassess based on just doing a lighter weight element.
Yeah, so I do like I do like the current design. I just would explore those posts on the sidewalk.
I'm sorry, I missed that last thing you said, Brendan. You'd like
I
to
would-
explore,
I would like to explore the pilasters on the sidewalk.
okay, on the side, okay,
Mhm.
all right. Any thoughts on that from Roy or Matthew?
Not particularly. There is one minor observation. I mean, I think part of what doesn't makes this look less like a major entrance that we're used to is the scale of like the first floor retail height. And so this looks a bit squunched, like you're going in. So I would just wonder if to me, it feels like if the storefront system with the front door was all glass there rather than the brick lower water table, it might announce a little bit more that this really is an entrance. I know because of the figures just kind of blocking the door, the way it looks now, it kind of looks like hotel room windows because of the sill that's like at 2 feet. But that's minor. I don't think it is really critical. That's just an observation for, you know, the visual kind of entry sequence here.
Yeah. I think it's a fair point. We can certainly do something about that. I want to look at how we furnish it. I'm not sure. I would like to create some form of small lobby seating area, but that doesn't mean to say we can't take the glazing system down and address it.
Todd, to answer your question, I think to Brendan's point, the slender columns would be more brand consistent with entry canopies, but I think it's going to be quite challenging to terminate the brick wall adjacent into some slender column, and it's going to feel tacked on. And then I think it may actually exacerbate how different the temple front looks to then just have these spindly columns. So that's a tricky one. I don't disagree that, you know, this is the one unique location where heavy brick pilasters are supporting the light canopy, but as far as what you've had to do here to try to balance all of the massing and facade composition, it does seem like a very reasonable solution.
You know, one thing we could do, Rory, is we could keep the pedestal base up to a certain height and put steel posts, more than one, possibly an array of 3, that creates a support for a light gauge steel frame to support the canopy, thereby transitioning from the masonry base element to a lighter support and canopy connection.
Yeah, float the canopy off of a kind of a shorty pilaster. That could
Yeah, I
be.
mean, it's more in keeping with what was in the packet on that floor plan. It's still a base brick on the pilaster, and then maybe a transition at the rail height or something, but
because in fact, there's nothing like this on the other building because the garage comes out to the face of that masonry wall.
Yeah.
And so keeping it as masonry, but maybe we lighten it up as it goes up.
I like that. Conceptually, that sounds great. I think I'm looking, can you go back to the axon from your submittal, the page above, all the way to the right? If you zoom in all the way on the right, the other thing to notice here, guys, is that there's kind of the mass of the tower with the rooms above this has been recessed intentionally to create, egress doors that can swing and make that entry procession a little deeper, which I think is quite nice. But on the side walls, which helps with daylight and airiness, we've kind of eroded that mass reaching the ground, and it's now sitting on pilasters. So I just wanted to point that out to Dad and just see if that had any reaction.
sorry, Rory, I'm not understanding.
So you see how
on the edges there.
Yeah, so basically in its existing form, that tower element comes all the way, it grounds itself. It's a full extrusion. So now it's just kind of these legs on the front wall. You can see what they're demoing, right? On the right there. Yeah, there you go.
My concern with that is if it stays solid, it creates a dead alcove that just collects a lot of leaves and other transient type things.
Yeah.
That was to no great benefit to anyone.
Understood. I was just pointing it out to see if Dad has any other feedback on.
Well, that's why I was saying I like the width of the columns as they're drawn in plan, and I assume that they've matched in this 3D that are supporting the tower. So in terms of visual structure, I don't mind having those open on the side. I mean, maybe there is a way to, on the plan, I don't see the low wall that's drawn into this axon.
It looks like a planter.
Yeah, so maybe that addition is helpful.
That was something that was added since the submission.
Mhm. And I think it works because you have to have that bump out on the east side of the entry.
Yeah.
So matching that on the west side, I think is fine.
Cool.
So you're not proposing any change there?
Mark's got his hand up. He's the polite one that doesn't just start talking.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I just wanted to pipe in and say, even though I ride by this all the time, I did a quick little Google map tour, and I concur with Brendan and Rory that the fabric arch does continue a theme that currently surrounds the building. And I keep seeing some variation in the one rendering that we've been looking at with the wider pilasters, and then in the packet on page 36, the upper left and the proposed new entry, the narrow pilasters. And then I certainly like the idea and concept of a little more decoration, or I don't mean decoration, but a different structural element supporting the awning. And then actually, if you notice on the image that's on the screen, it looks like there was some discussion of some sort of detailing on both the front and rear. Am I reading that correctly? That you have some sort of detailing on that pilaster to take it away from just a plain brick column. I'm not sure what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, you're correct. We're kind of playing on the existing recessed soldier course detailing that happens throughout there. In a slightly different version of that.
Yeah. Well, I would be in favor of narrower, lighter, the triple steel column sounds interesting. The only other thing I wanted to mention, in terms of daylighting or trying to get more light into the rooms, one of the things I've experienced traveling with other business people is many times travelers are less concerned about light in their room, not me, but they're concerned about perceived security. And in fact, when you have really bright access and a lot of visuals and proximity to the street, that makes some people very nervous. And I think that extra layer of the brick wall and the patios and stuff, I think are needed and probably more of a benefit to many hotel goers than additional light. I would be the other way around, but I'm traveling with people who are like, oh, I don't want to be on the ground floor. I don't want to be on the street. They don't like that. So that's my unprofessional input.
Experiential knowledge.
Yeah.
That all sounds good to me.
Okay, so let me see if I can kind of summarize where we are. So in terms of the structure, DAB members are comfortable with the structure staying there and not actually removing it. So it sounds like everybody's sort of on board with, or at least okay with that. It doesn't confuse wayfinding because of the closure and the bicycle elements and things like that. So that's one thing. And so tell me if I'm getting this right. So number two is in terms of the canopy, people are comfortable with the canopy as it's shown there, and the consistency with the canopies on the other sides of the two buildings. So that's number 2. The number 3 is, let's see, the pilasters are, initially the discussion was the pilasters may be too heavy. And there needs to be some way to lighten them up, either keeping them as masonry, but lightening them as they go up. That was one option. I'm not sure if the triple steel structure is significantly or substantively different than that. We may want to get some clarity on that. And then the fourth recommendation is that the entrance needs to have more glass, so it looks more like an entrance rather than a window. Have I got that right, or am I missing anything?
That sounds very good as a summary.
Okay. Is there a difference between keeping the pilasters as masonry but lightening them as they go up versus
No,
the steel
that-
structure? Is
I
that
think
the
this,
same?
the triple steel structure was just Adrian's suggestion of how to lighten it as it goes up.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that's
more in keeping with the other awnings on the rest of the historic building,
right.
which are significantly
So-
lighter.
Yeah, so we're giving you sort of conceptual recommendations, and the conceptual one there is that that the pilasters may be too heavy, and there may be a way to sort of lighten them up.
Yes, I think, my just original suggestion was that it needs to be explored. And through the detailing process, I think, I like some of that brick detailing. It was on the others, and I liked the integration of the lighting design. I think that there are a lot of solutions to this. The weight of the roof system itself and the support underneath it just needs to be explored.
Okay,
Can work with that. I'm sure that you've given us enough leeway and direction that we can get something in keeping with your comments.
I do have another question for you guys, since I went by there this afternoon and got out and walked around and looked at stuff, and I was kind of wondering about the sidewalk that leads up to the current entrance, because it looks like that side, the layout of that sidewalk kind of leads you up to that point. And here the sidewalk is pretty uniform. But do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, there's
Without-
two things. I'm looking at the Google Earth, Todd. One, there were stairs, so that like literally led you up, which is now where the bike parking is. But two, the projection of the curb, so where it creates the parking versus no parking,
Yeah,
is centered up on the portico. But I would think
that's
that's
kind of what
actually,
I'm getting at.
in a lot of ways, that's a benefit, as Adrian was saying, that like you can let somebody out of your car and they got a straight shot to the front door. The
Yeah, right now-
landscaping looks way nicer in their proposal now too.
So if you zoom in there, you can see the white area is where the loading zone is, right there. That's where the loading zone is, and that'll be closer to the new entry, which is the big roof. With the pyramidal roof that's visible, not in shadow. That's the current, that's where the new entry would be.
Yeah,
I do think that there's some work that we can do to work on the patterning of the brick improvements on the right of way. Also, I'm a little bit concerned about the step being the same color. I think we want to look at how all of that works so that we don't create any confusion about where a step is and where it isn't. Likewise, I'm not so sure that we want to make the walkway up to that area the full width of the opening, or if there's something in between and get more landscaping as opposed to it all being leading up to one step. So there's a level of detail in there that I think is part of the natural development of a project as it moves forward.
Right.
indeed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's always a level of detailing and sausage making, as we say in this office. That it'll sort of work itself out, but I think that
There you go.
solution is pretty nice right now, and internalizing that ramp is just gonna make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Because right now, all you're seeing is a lot of circulation, the stairs, open stair, the ramp, the stairs into the courtyard.
Mhm.
I just think it's gonna become a little more inviting and welcoming with.
And it's actually worse than you're saying, because once you get up to the top, you've got all this additional circulation space to get into the existing conference area. It's really a lot of circulation area that we're reducing.
Yeah, I think it's an improvement.
Okay.
Can they throw copper standing seam roofs to replace all that asphalt? Is that in the budget, Adrian?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we
Cool.
figured out that, just very briefly, taking that temple front, as you say, out is gonna be somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000.
Yeah, it seems like the antithesis of boulders kind of don't fill the landfills direction.
Okay, well, is there anything else that we need to talk about regarding this? Mark, you got your hand up there?
I do.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask, I was unable to tell from the drawings provided in the packet. Are you modifying the garage level in any way?
Yeah, we're putting in a lot of bike parking, Mark.
Adrian, did you somehow anticipate my question?
I thought somewhere in here we were gonna be talking about bikes. I just was confident we would.
This is not a planning board meeting, Mark. We don't deal with the underground.
I know who we're talking to.
But it was, that you did provide the garage plan view, and I was unable to determine if you were modifying it much.
I don't know if you heard me, but I said to Jake, don't spend time there.
Well, actually, I would actually just appreciate a simple answer to that. Is how much are you modifying the garage?
Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, we're restriping almost all the parking to get the parking spaces into compliance with Boulder's current standards, and then we will be adding quite a bit of long-term parking storage to meet the latest bike parking requirements.
Dozens of bikes.
Okay, that's great. That was all I needed. You've satisfied this bike nerd. Thank you.
I'm sure that one of our staff members can tell us exactly how much, but I don't do memory anymore.
That's okay. I knew I was stretching it based on the subject matter, but I couldn't control myself. I had to ask.
And what's that
Okay,
for, Mark? All the out-of-town guests that have bikes?
Well, you.
Oh, wait, no, it's the staff that makes the wage working at this hotel that lives in Boulder that's gonna ride their bike to work. That's who it is.
Well, that is also true. Yes.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time.
Is there anything on the west side of the building that we need to look at?
I think
I'd say the answer is no, but I don't know what you want.
I would say the answer is no too. I mean, they're pulling off the canopy and replacing doors with residential windows or, a hotel room window. And that facade maintains a lot of character just due to its mass and proportion. So I think the only thing we talked about in the pre-agenda meeting was you now have a wonderful opportunity to landscape this because it's no longer this kind of outflow conference break patio. And I think we were just curious if, our street tree, it looked like it was all low plantings just graphically. And, is there an opportunity for additional street trees or canopy driven plantings as an aside?
It's a very awkward space right now. The public sidewalk comes inboard here. in a manner that it doesn't do in the next, across the alley. And at least we're able to improve the planting zone. The walls we're not taking out. We feel like that would not necessarily be beneficial. It does provide a certain amount of protection for the rooms adjacent to it. This is all public access easement inboard our property line, so we have limited authority to mess with this without going back to city council. It's essentially, we're just trying to improve the landscape area.
That
I don't know
planting
about
bed,
street trees, what we can do in that regard.
the planting bed that's right on Broadway on the across the sidewalk from from the building, is that city maintenance?
I really doubt it. I'm pretty sure it's maintained by the Boulderado. If it's like any other plant in the public right of way, it's up to the property owner to make sure it stays alive.
Okay.
I mean, that
I'm
whole
surprised those
planter
trees are-
is currently filled with trees, like canopy trees.
Yeah, they look like they're not in very good shape, but the taller trees.
Yeah. There's a lot of traffic in that area, and I'm sure
Yeah.
the environmental conditions are not the best.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I thought I'd just see if any of my fellow DAB members had any.
I
Thoughts on
also
that?
think that this is an improvement. I really like taking off that canopy. It didn't make sense driving down Broadway at 50 miles an hour, well, speed limit, of course.
On your
To have
bike?
that entry
On
canopy
your
there, I think it's just an improvement. I like that change.
Okay, good. Well, are we kind of,
Yeah, let's make this a record time here.
okay,
Kailani's got her hand up.
I do. I don't want to blow your record time here, but can we just re-summarize? I know that there was, Todd, you did kind of a transitional summary, but summarize for Devin and the record and for the applicant, that will be part of the DAB's official recommendation here at the end,
yes.
and then we can be done.
I will do that. Okay.
No.
So the original question was about the structure and whether we thought that was going to confuse sort of the wayfinding component of the project. And we decided that we didn't think it would. There was some question about there were maybe too many different roof forms, but that wasn't a big concern. So the recommendation there is to keep that structure in place. And then we kind of moved on to talking about the canopy and whether that canopy looked like it was appropriate, and we felt that it was, or that it is. Then we talked about the pilasters may be too heavy and there needs to be some sort of transition. They can remain as masonry, but lighten them up as it goes up, or come up with some other structural mechanism that kind of does the same thing. But the idea, the masonry structures seem appropriate for that location. And then finally, I think the last one was that the entryway needs to have more glass so that it looks more like an entryway, that it draws you into that space a little more directly. I think that's it. I don't think and then on the west side, everybody's comfortable with the proposal over there. I think that's it. Did I miss anything?
That sounds good. That was a good summary.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So
Thank you.
I think we are, as far as I can tell, we are done with, unless there are other questions or other comments that we missed. I think we're done with applicant review. We don't have any public participation that's shown up. while we're going through this. So I think we can close that out, and thank you guys for explaining all this to us. And we usually start off by telling you something that we think is wonderful about the project before we get into what we're going to be a little more critical about. But this seemed like a small enough question that I think we just sort of dove in there. But it looks like an interesting project, and we're sort of more focused on the outside. So I think all the stuff on the inside is looks interesting as well. So we wish you luck with it.
Thank you. It's only taken us a year to get this far, and that isn't even with staff review.
Well, then we were easy.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, well, that ends the whole review of the discussion items and review of the project. So we can move on to board matters. And I don't know if that requires everybody to stay, but certainly welcome. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, board.
So moving on to the next agenda item, any board matters that we need to talk about?
Not from staff this evening, so.
Okay,
Do we have an April applicant or no?
Maybe we have some projects that are in different phases, so if there might be one that I really don't know until we get closer to our due date on the application. So, that time I'll let you guys know.
do we have any new DAB members that have shown any interest besides Rory's coming back on board?
So there were 5 applications submitted for interviews for the 2 DAB seats. The two seats that are open right now are design professional seats. So that was part of the requirement. We do have a at-large kind of community seat, but that's not what was being filled. 3 of those applications were from people that were not within the city limits. So we do get I guess we've been getting several just outside of the city limits, but within Boulder County applicants, or folks that work at a firm in town and want to apply, but they don't live within the city, so they don't qualify to be part of DAB right now. So we had Rory at the interview, and we had Stephen from Brian Bowen's firm, and I'm trying to think of his last name. I have the paperwork, so we had 2 applicants interview, and we have 2 seats open. And so if you guys want to watch city council coming up on, is it tomorrow they're doing appointments?
Next week, I think Devin said.
It's
Next
the
week.
16th, correct?
The 16th, so they'll be doing that then. Rory, are you going to tune in to see if you're
I'll watch the rerun.
So we'll know next week, and it'll be probably 2 years if we get 2 appointments that we've had a full board, or, right when COVID started, we were at 3, and then Brendan, you joined us, and we were then finally at 4. And so it will be nice to have a full board.
I guess, is there a risk that they would not appoint and leave it with the result of vacancy? If it was just.
They removed the rule that they had where it was, we had an applicant the last 2 times before Brendan, but they had a rule where you had to have 2 or more applications from different people, or they wouldn't seat someone. So during those other years, we only had 1 application, and they couldn't even be interviewed. So they removed that, so that helped. So now they're actually getting to see folks and do the interviews too. I mean, I guess with there's always a chance, right, that someone may not be appointed. It is a voting type of process with city council. but we haven't had a member that's applied ever be denied a seat on the board.
So are we on a calendar basis? Or,
Yes, like a
We are, okay.
yearly March, and each one of you has a different seat date that
Yeah.
as you roll off, so kind of rolling clock of open seats on the board.
but
Kailani,
it's a rolling clock based on the calendar and not the,
5-year terms, yeah.
Right,
March,
okay.
5-year terms. So
Right,
5 years
okay.
from when you take you're seated in March. And if you're I don't know, an interim seat, we haven't had that yet, but it would start your
Right.
rolling clock in March again anyways. So
and then at some point we have to elect the chair.
Yes, that should be typically done on a yearly basis. So in March, you guys will, or when you have your new person in April, if we have a meeting, we can elect the chair. Or we can wait. Sometimes, you don't have a project every month, but that's something. If you do want to meet to do board kind of operations and meet and elect a chair in April, regardless of whether you have a project, we can hold the meeting and you can do that if you'd like.
I was
Okay.
thinking we should meet at a restaurant to honor the transition of a 5-year term as if I had left and been reappointed.
Yeah, there's that dinner.
I know. I have to check with Amanda and see if we're doing that still. So I'm checking, Rory. Let me check.
Okay, and then let me know when I can come dig through the crates for that historic photo.
Well, that's good.
I'm not
I
kidding.
think that
I
was
want one.
actually that's a lottery. They just grab whatever, Cindy was she would pick out ones for each member. So, and planning board too. So
And the
I would
application is now closed. So for new board members, it's
February. It closed.
okay. All right.
Is that possible though? That was like my dream, was to serve my 5 years and be rewarded with my diploma historic photo. You know what I mean?
I know.
So it sounds like you want a going away party and a welcome party, like.
Yes,
the same
correct.
night.
Yes, exactly. And that could take the place of our meeting and we could discuss board matters.
I think we should do that. I'd certainly be up for that.
You're muted,
You're-
Kailani.
You're muted.
We have to have the meeting in this format as a notice online meeting. We can't have the meeting as a dinner party. Though I like your idea, but we have to have the minutes in this official meeting.
I think it'd be fun, and maybe if it makes sense, we could do it once the new member is appointed, just so that, I mean, so many of us on this board have probably never interacted physically before. So I think there's a sense of kind of camaraderie and team building that's
So
inherent.
And we can have like a Zoom, we could have a Zoom camera at the restaurant. We could just bring a laptop and record, anybody else wants to.
Kalani,
join.
when I came on the board, and Rory knows this, and Matthew, I don't know, you may know this too. After the board meetings, we used to go out.
Yeah. We used to
That
get
was
drinks.
just before COVID. We would go out.
Yeah, it was fun.
So
I think, yeah, it was.
my
Okay.
input on all of this is that after being on tab for 2 years and never being able to meet, and then now a year on planning board and never being able to meet in person. But I did do a housing tour with several members of HAB and several planning board members, that you have to be, you cannot conduct business. There's nothing that says that we can't get together.
Exactly.
We can't get together and conduct any business. I mean, we can talk about kids and skiing,
Yeah.
whatever, but we cannot talk about DAB, HAB, planning board. We just can't do that, or we violate the Colorado Open Meetings Act. So anyway,
Can't use the word plaster.
you can't.
Yeah.
Low screen, all that stuff, all that.
I'll write
that-
down all the words that we can't use, because I'm like,
Then
oh,
I'm not
I gotta
coming.
figure out what that means.
I'm not gonna join unless I can use Pilaster.
Mark said Pilaster. I'm like, Mark knows what Pilaster is?
Well, obviously not, since I said Pilaster and everyone, all the professionals are saying Pilaster, so it's
Close enough.
Pilaster, right, okay.
That's just dialect.
I said it wrong too then.
I feel like maybe your new gifts is not a historic photo anymore, but like a Arc of Babel, like t-shirt of pronunciation. Or
No,
maybe that's the joke gift that you get.
let's give that to the new guy, but let's, just, I'm serious. I'm kind of joking, but not really. I would love one of those historic photos. Those are sweet.
They're pretty
I need to
great.
reach out
There's
to
so
Cindy to
many
get
different,
that?
because they're from the library too. So the library has this huge collection of old photos.
Is that something that there's a reality of happening, or am I just puffing air over here?
The reality of what?
That can happen? Like, is that can we reach out to Cindy and see if she could help with that?
She's no longer with planning department. So she's in housing. So no, she won't be doing any of that portion, but.
So Devin, you look like you know how to dig through crates.
You
Please
order them
give Rory a
online.
Picture.
Have you guys seen them before? They're sweet. Like, they're framed and it's like some cool shot from, like, I think the one that they gave to who was the last one that left? The older
Jim.
gentleman.
The
Jim.
last
Yeah, he
one,
got
Jim.
he got this like killer shot of Mapleton before there was any trees on it. Like, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Anyways,
that's definitely a
keep-
board matter.
let's keep that. I think it's a good excuse to meet physically for team building exercise, and it would probably be best timed if there was a new board member to join us, so that there's an opportunity to kind of socialize ahead of official business in a way that, you know, it's a little intimidating. I think, Brendan, probably your first meeting, you all of a sudden are just sitting in the Zoom with everybody expected to like participate. You don't know anybody's personality, you know. I think it might soften that entry.
She's keeping quiet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was the project. It was another Adrian Sofa project that was intimidating.
Oh, that's right. That was the
It was tricky. That was a tricky
Best
one.
Western. Yeah.
So this one was way easier.
Yeah, and some of this stuff is even being built now. Or has been built.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, I don't want to keep you guys any longer. Are there any calendar check we need to do?
No, we will be in contact about April, but if anybody has any meeting or spring break conflicts with that standard date, please just email us. Let us know.
Is the standard date the 5th?
It will be, let me open up that calendar. So second Tuesday or second Wednesday, the 12th. So April 12th will be, if there's a project review that day. It may be a good idea, since you have a new member, to do at least we can do a Zoom introductions, and you guys can elect or re-elect board chair and vice chair too. It could be a quick board matters meeting, just at least for introductions. So I can email you guys and see how that's going, and then you check your calendars as far as spring breaks, your schedule, and let us know if that's a good date to hold still.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep.
And just one matter of note, you can probably, it seems like planning board members, we rotate through the various ex officio and other positions. And
You
so
might have.
you might have a new planning board member as not new to you guys, not necessarily a new planning board member, but
Okay.
yes.
And then
So
maybe
you're done? You're done in April, Mark? Has it been a year?
Unless I, wage a serious campaign to retain my seat as ex officio member to DAB, I'll probably go be ex officio to something else.
Got it.
We can request you, can't we? We can petition.
Yeah, that might be unseemly, so I'm not gonna.
Well, it was great having you if this ends up being your
Yes.
last kind of
Yeah,
roll with
for
us
sure.
through a design review, so. That is it.
Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. I guess we're adjourning. We don't have to vote on that. So, meeting adjourned.
Take
Have a
care,
good one,
guys.
Thanks.
Take
Bye.
care.
Have a good night.
Bye.